Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the HR and Payroll 2.0 podcast. I'm Pete Tiliakis, and as always, I'm joined by the legendary Julie Fernandez. Welcome, Julie.
Hey, thanks, Pete. And we are excited to actually spend some time today with a good friend of both of ours, Danny Schulz from Kohler.
Yes.
Welcome, Danny.
Thank you. Glad to be here. Yeah.
Yeah. Look, it's a Friday here. I'm fresh back from Vegas. I think I landed just a few hours ago. I'm really burning on fumes, and I have to tell you, folks, you don't know what we've gone through to get to this point in this episode. We have had everything from construction at my house to going outside and it raining on me, to Danny having to get congressional approval to get into our platform, to Julie's husband, to the dogs at my house, to everything. We've had every obstacle, but never stops us. Here we are. we're back. But
Danny,
it's the agility of payroll, if anything, right, Pete? We're very agile as a group. So
that's right.
Just proving the points today.
Yeah, overcome and adapt. That's what they teach us in the Marines. So we are overcoming.
Danny, we couldn't want to talk to you more. That's what I'm saying.
We've been trying to get you on the show since the inception of this show. So it's been hard, but you've been elusive. What have you been up to?
Well, we like to hide, right? We're just busy at Kohler. We do a lot of crazy things. Very, very busy with all my family stuff. And sometimes I can be a little introverted, believe it or not. And so we have to try to make sure that, it's worth talking to me sometimes once in a while.
Yeah.
Hey,
it's
Danny,
good.
as we've gotten to know each other, first of all, you're safe to say, right, the right title, Director of Global Payroll now at Kohler, right? I mean, I thought I knew what Kohler did. And usually I'm thinking sinks and faucets and stuff. But the more I know you, the more Kohler does everything. We
do. We have a little bit of everything, right? We've got world-class golf with some golf courses here in the Kohler area with Whistling Straits and Black Wolf Run. We've got some hospitality overseas as well in Scotland, in St. Andrews area, which is fantastic. And then world-class hospitality in the village of Kohler up here in Wisconsin. Everything down to, stables and landscaping and, of course, chocolates. We're your favorite chocolate company you've never heard of, right? Well,
you mentioned that, man. We dropped the ball. We were going to get some chocolates and enjoy some Kohler chocolates here on the show, but we didn't get that done. But we're going to check it out. So is it basically the Kohler family? Is that like a portfolio of things that they own, essentially?
Yeah. So a lot of it, I think, originated. Mr. Kohler, just a visionary and genius, right? Really loved everything about the village, but the old immigrant housing for the workers that they had brought over was called the American Club. And now Mr. Kohler had a vision that, hey, we could turn that into a world-class resort. Things snowballed. We built the resort.
Yeah.
Guests needed something to do. And so we built world-class Pete Dye design golf courses because we don't really go halfway at Kohler. We go full way. And it's, just a great resort, great spas. Everybody will love it. We get a lot of people here, and then we get to show them some of the fun stuff. A factory tour here is something else. So if you ever, if you ever make it up, make sure you get signed up for a factory tour and come see all this stuff.
If you ever find yourself in the village of Kohler, you should ask. I've never found my way to Wisconsin to begin with, to be honest with you. But if I do, I would love to go.
Yeah, we'll have to get you up there.
And since it's all about employees, how many employees does Kohler have? I mean, you do payroll. Everybody wants to know how many employees usually.
Way to go, Julie, to keep us on topic. For payroll, we have about 30,000 employees now at Kohler worldwide. We pay in, I think it was, 65, 70 company code combinations. So we're very global. We have a good mix between the different regions, and we have manufacturing facilities all around the world. A lot of our things, it's hard to ship toilets. And so where they get produced, they sort of stay in region and we work from there. And it's been a great business model. We've been around, 152 years this year. And so it's been a great story. And it all came from throwing some feet on a cast iron tub or cast iron pig scalder to make it a tub. It's a great history.
Is Kohler, or has Kohler gone through any bit of, their own sort of, there's a lot of push towards smart technology in manufacturing, smart manufacturing, a lot of automation, I'm sure AI, obviously. But are you guys kind of on a digital journey on the front, on the product side of your business as well?
Yeah, we're doing a lot of smart factory innovations and changes as well. We got a whole team that's looking at doing all those things. I'm not as plugged in there as to really answer what
Yeah.
we've all been done. I probably couldn't say if I knew anyhow, but I can
Yeah.
tell you some cool stuff. But it's still great to do the
Yeah.
tours and see some of the stuff that's done by hand. We've got artist
Yeah.
edition things and projects like that that are just gorgeous and fantastic, and just one of a kind pieces that are made as well.
Yeah.
It's the whole gamut of things where it's a really unique place, and it's a great history.
That's cool. That's cool.
Hey, Pete, do you want to do the honors? Since I know Danny and I had a conversation that I am
Yeah.
itching for us to share here in the
Yeah.
podcast. So do you want to
Yeah.
do the honors you usually give to me?
Danny, we always ask every guest how they got into payroll and HR. Why do they stay? What's your story?
Yeah, so early in my career, I'm an accounting major by trade and marketing degree as well. And um, I was a jumper. I was a 2 year and jump guy, and tried my way around public accounting, and then I had made it in industry and was really focusing on sales and use tax. And Kohler gave me a call at one point in time to come over and head up their sales and use tax team, and payroll tax was a part of that. And eventually we were down to a point where I thought I'd grown as much as I could doing that role, and I was looking for something else. And it was either going into accounts payable or payroll. When I was looking at, 'cause I really wanted to stay at Kohler, and so I raised my hand for the payroll role, and I got.
Yeah.
They thought that was a good idea, and so that was the year before COVID, and I've sort of stuck. It's been great
Yeah.
helping transform that. We've taken the function from finance over to total rewards and HR, and I think that's been really
Oh,
great for us
awesome.
at Kohler.
We just talked about that, Julie, didn't we?
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that trend.
I love it. I think it's just how we focus on it. We're in the people business in payroll, whether or not we want to admit it.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think sometimes payroll doesn't really like to be the people-y part of the business.
Yep.
But this is the people business, and it's all about, how can we provide gracious living is a standard and phrase we use at Kohler. And so we're really trying to make a world-class, gracious payroll experience for all the employees, and
Yeah.
really just promising the best we can to provide an accurate and timely paycheck around the world. And that's all we're
Yeah.
doing. And so this to me is, I'm a central Wisconsin farm kid. How can we make people's lives better? What can we do to make the experience better? And from a payroll aspect, this all makes sense, right? Just treat
Yeah.
people right and help them get paid. So,
Yeah. I love that. It sounds like you have a culture that's actually prioritizing you, right? And leaning into that. And I love that alignment to total rewards. Julie and I talked about on our PayCon debrief episode,
Yeah.
some of that trend that we're seeing, executive leaders that are now running payroll and leading payroll underneath the total rewards banner. And I just think it's a perfect alignment versus in this HR versus finance house, housing of payroll.
yeah, it's a great
Yeah.
fit, right? We've always had to partner really strongly with the benefits team. We've always had to partner with comp.
Yeah.
And so
A lot of synergies
a-
there.
yeah, it's a real natural spot. And now we're all leading the same way. And it's been really great for us to be able to be just deeper partners within that part of the org. So that way, if there's a change coming, we're not as blindsided as we might have been in the past. And so that's been great for us, right? We've been
Yeah.
able to be a lot more proactive. And that way, when we announce a change to employees, we're ready for payroll. And it's not always,
Yeah.
hey, why didn't I get this new benefit on my
Yeah.
check? And we're like, nobody told us there was a new thing, right?
It makes that
sometimes
benefits
how-
enrollment experience and the comp cycles and the bonus cycles and all of that much more synergized and much more, effective, I guess you could say, in
Yeah.
making sure that the outcomes are going to be solid and correct and everybody's going to be happy, because there's nothing worse than getting your bonus and it's got a problem. So
Yeah, and then
I
all
love
three
it.
of those functions are moving in the same direction, which is
Yeah.
great, right?
Yeah.
And you guys are going to Workday, right?
We are going to Workday. We are about 13 months out. We're a July 1, 26 go live, where I think we have what seems like 4 million people working on the project. It's a huge project. As we're
Yeah.
doing a lot of other things, it's a very exciting time at Kohler.
Yeah.
It's
Worth
we
it.
just came off another huge project, and I always look at my career as 10 stake moments, and this is just another one that we get to plant
Yeah.
and raise the flag up, and it'll be fun. It's going to continue to be a challenge.
Remember
but
when you
it'll be
started
great.
this journey, you and I talked, and I think I told you, I said, look, it's going to be painful, but you're going to learn more. You're going to get a degree. Another degree is what I like to say, another master's degree and in transformation, man. And it's going to make you so much more, just your lens richer as a leader.
It's fun watching others grow on the project as well. So it's great
Yeah.
being able to give your team a chance and watch them
Yep.
thrive and give a little stretch assignment here or there. Because at the end of the day, this is all about developing people and making it the best we can.
Yeah. I've seen a lot of people really, really bolster their careers through these sorts of transformations where they had an opportunity to lead some segment and that led to something else for them. So it's a chance that you're right to come out of your shell and stretch a little bit.
Hey, I'm gonna start to wrangle us in a direction because Danny and I had a chance just a week or two ago at Payo to really trade some fun stories and some really cool things that I think he's been doing that I think a lot of our listeners would really love to hear about. We started in the direction of conversations that everyone was having there about having 5 generations in the workplace and knowing that we have a crisis in payroll coming. I know, different stats and things have said that, by 2030, which is only 5 years from now, all baby boomers are going to be 65 or over. And we know that generation makes up a pretty big portion of the payroll workforce. And I think we hear from many, many sources that are part of our industry in payroll that there's a crisis coming in payroll talent and a labor shortage with the vacancies and turnover and things. So Danny, anything in particular? Like, I know that's what got our juices rolling and got us into a great conversation a week or so ago.
Yeah, that's something we've spent a lot of time at Kohler, just looking at, first and initially our US team. We have had just the privilege of amazing tenure at the organization. When I look at our US team, there's 12 of us, and we had, a couple of years ago, average tenure was over 25 years. We've had some retirements and things come through in the last couple of years. We had 2 people retire, but we're able to really take that and plan for the organization. I'm looking at, we have, still 18 years of average tenure is fantastic, but we're kind of top heavy. We've got a guy who's been on the payroll team for 49 years, and
Wow.
that is, he's retiring next year. He's gonna get his 50-year plate from Kohler, and we're so excited to have that celebration and wish him the best. But some of the things he's seen in his career are just amazing, right?
I worked with some of those folks.
Yeah, the information they have. And so we certainly have done a lot of pre-planning and a great partnership with HR as we look at, we've got, 4 people that are probably nearing retirement as they're, 60 or above. And we've got some teammates that are down under that are, just hit 30 this year. And so it's really, as a leader, and I'll be 43 this year. And so for me, one of the things is, how do you lead across this from an organization perspective? And it's certainly different views, and you really have to look and learn and understand how people want to be seen, what kind of things they want to do. Certainly there's some people that, might be just perfectly happy individual contributors, and you've got to know who wants a stretch assignment and who can you push and how do you play those buttons. The different generations, it's something that I've loved to learn over the years, and certainly now with 5, Julie. When they said that, my jaw, I was one of those people that jaw hit the table, and just, I guess there are, right? And it's understanding the wants and the needs, right? And that's where EWA came about. And from a Kohler aspect, when I started here, we were still sending paper pay statements around to everybody in the US, and so that's not a thing anymore. We've got ESS, and mostly everybody's direct deposit, and it's been great. And it's been great to see the changes that we've made just in the short 13 years that I've been at Kohler. But it's been some of the other changes that we're going to see in the next 2-3 years are going to be astronomical. We're very excited for a lot of it. It's going to be fun.
Yeah. I pulled a stat again from the Bureau of Labor that the payroll industry's labor shortage, just quantifying it, that there's an average of 384,000 job vacancies per month in 2023 related to payroll.
Yeah.
And that's just going to keep going. And I know
Well,
shortly after my conversation with you, Danny, a woman from a Midwest bank, a large Midwest bank organization, came up to me and said, we have a very senior staff, and one of my key contributors is 71 years old. And, and I love her, and she's super valuable, and I hope she's around forever. But honestly,
Yeah.
okay, at some point in time, she might want a break.
Based on the payroll profession confidence index, 49% of the sample we took of 5 continents, 28 countries, was 20 years or more. So half of the global, and the next band was pretty big too. It was like 27% or so of the rest. So you got about 60 to 70% that are actually in that sort of, next 10 years window of potentially retiring or thinking about retiring. So we got a lot.
Yeah.
And that's where payroll really needs to become the storyteller, right? This isn't payroll of 1996 or 2006 anymore. We're a group that, deals with RPA. We're a group that is going to be on the front lines for AI and all the different tools. And Julie, your presentation at Congress was fantastic, right? From a Paycon perspective, this is what people want to get into. You can, dip your toe into so many different areas and touch so many different things without fully committing right away. And I think that's going to be the fun part from a talent perspective is, maybe as we're looking from a payroll aspect, and I've seen success with, I think Anne-Marie V was one of the ones who we were talking with, and she's had very good success when they're hiring from a payroll aspect. And I do the same thing. I don't necessarily, depending on role, you don't necessarily need to know payroll. We can teach you payroll.
Exactly.
Right.
But we need you to learn the analytics piece, right? We need you to learn and have teams that can, Deanne Dunan's doing great things with RPA, and her team is building bots.
Yeah.
Like the bot building aspect. Who would have thought, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, that there'd be automation processes being programmed within the payroll department? Nobody thought that, right?
Remember when OSV brought out their BPAS model for that, 5 years ago? I helped them launch that. That was really ahead of its time. But it is, you're right. You're, Julie, we were talking about this when you go around just at this sample of folks. I mean, I do a lot more conversations beyond Paycon, but at Paycon, it was easy to find folks that were doing just this, right? Becoming really data scientists and risk managers. Finding that we're seeing more senior vice presidents that are reporting into and leading payroll and reporting into the comp side of business. And just a maturation, I guess you could say, of all of this coming together, I think is really, really exciting. But the problem is still, how do you get people to start looking at payroll as a place I want to go start? I mean, I'm running into some young leaders now that are really refreshing. And they're starting their career there, but not everybody ever did that. And they're definitely not doing it now with the AI being sort of pulsed out there to say, look, we don't, payroll's gone, HR's gone. You just need to be, doing something else. But the reality of it is what we need is very technically proficient compliance experts. And that's where I think payroll can really, really shine. It's a great opportunity.
I hope you don't mind, Danny, if I say, you just shared a fascinating approach and something really pragmatic that you did at Kohler as you, started looking at talent and even succession planning, right? And is very open and transparent, I think much more so than many organizations or many leaders are going to be comfortable with. And I wanted to see if we could talk about that a little bit, because I think there are other leaders that are just dying to know, what do I do when I look out? And I'm so grateful that I have this senior talent and experienced team. And yet I'm also terrified that, I could be the last guy standing, and not be able to handle this. And you've done some really creative and hands-on things and dug into it. And I'm wondering if we could talk a little bit about that.
We certainly can. I can, when we were looking at this a couple of years ago, I looked at the structure of the team. I'm like, oh, in the next 5 years, half the team could be retired. That's a red flag to me as a manager. And I know HR is super busy, so we had to make sure. I'm like, hey, friends in HR, we might have a problem here in a couple of years. How do we work about team together and we create a plan for turnover? And they were really supported, and we helped build a plan. And it's one of these things where in payroll, just like HR, you have to be agile. Things change, employees change, and we were able to also then take advantage of. We had somebody retire, and we were able to promote within. But then we were also able to repurpose some other jobs in the group and provide a more firm career path for those coming up.
Yeah.
Because the one thing, if you've got great talent in your org, the one thing that you want to do is you don't want to lose them, right? And but you might not always have clear defined opportunities to give them. And so you have to make sure that you path it and you have those hard conversations and you really build that path so they know, hey, like we really think you're a great employee, you're doing great things. Here are some of the things in the next 12 months, 18 months, 3 years that we see as big projects and milestones coming down the way. And then you're able to surprise sometimes and say, hey, by the way, we want to promote you into this role. We want to change your focus a little bit. We want to take you maybe out of some of the day-to-day processing pieces that we have in payroll and really use your project management skills and help us guide through on some of these other places. While at the same time, then learning from those that have been here for 49, 38, 26, 30 years and really provide support from an organization. There's been times where I've heard colleagues and they're like, oh, we had somebody leave the organization and nobody else knew how to do their work. There's times where we're at payroll congress and you've got people who are out missing sessions and they're running payroll because they don't have backup. And so that's one of the things. Super lucky to have a good size team at Kohler where we've got backups and you really look through all that. But you have to be proactive. You have to look at your team and you almost have to anticipate who could leave and when.
Well,
and I certainly have a backup plan for everybody if they leave on what my action would be on all of them. That's something that I just feel like you need.
It's like every industry's going through a knowledge transfer exercise right now. You know what I mean? Like really trying to, I would hopefully document, but draw out all of that expertise from the past generations so that the future generations can learn from it. So hopefully.
What I thought was really cool about your approach, Danny, is you actually decided to just, go person by person and have conversations, right? And queue up and, ask them and ask them what their ambitions were, or, what their interest was. And I'd love to know, I'm sure everybody who's listening would love to know, like, how the heck did that go? I mean, did people share openly with you? Like, hey, I hope to be out of here in a few years, or I really don't like it here. I'd like to be over there. Or yeah, I want to grow here and I really don't want to go. Like, how did that come about and how did that work?
I think some of it might be the Wisconsin and us all coming through. We're a Wisconsin-based group. And I certainly didn't do it on day one in the payroll department. I was a couple of years in. We had gone through COVID and some reorgs at Kohler. And so I think by that time we had the team's trust. And so we just sat down and was like, hey, like we got to just trying to plan out where everything's going. And they went surprisingly well. Most people, I can tell you sort of what day they plan on retiring. And that gives you an idea, right? So like, hey, we're going to have turnover about here. And then when budget discussions come, because I own a budget here at Kohler, right? I also know that I got somebody retiring this year. We'd maybe would like some backfill and some shadowing for a few months. And so you can build that into your budget. But everybody was very receptive. It's one of those things where if you go at it and your intentions are clean and they have a reason to trust you, they're going to trust you. And you built that trust and you built those communications. I'm a pretty no nonsense farm kid. Like, I'm going to tell you like it is. It's just how I am and how I was raised. And I think there's a lot of respect for that. Very blue collar area here in Wisconsin, and they certainly appreciate those things too.
Danny, when we were at PayCon, we were talking about your vision, right? You have a vision for your future organization, which I know is getting more global. You're obviously expanding. You're looking at your succession. Like how much of that I mean, obviously significantly. I know that's sort of a rhetorical question, but like, how did you weave this part into that, right? Into that vision and plan to say, like, look, I know what my team's going to need to look like, the skills we're going to need, the types of resources. Like, how much is that succession woven into what you want the department to look like in the future?
Well, this is where I tell you we're sort of half baked on what we want the org structure of the future to look like,
Yeah.
as we're still building that out. But I will tell you, this goes back to being people focused. This
Mhm.
isn't just about us producing paychecks. We want to provide, career paths for the people in payroll. And we want to make sure that they're doing work that's meaningful to them and to the business. And I think that's part of, extending the gracious living that we have at Kohler to our
Yeah.
customers, which is everybody receiving a check, but also to the employees within the department. We want to see them grow. We had a teammate a few years ago who was struggling in payroll. She was very proficient at her role, but she wanted an opportunity for something else. And at the time, we just didn't have anything for her. And we
Yeah.
had many conversations. And it's one of those things where she got a role external to Kohler, which is not something we ever want to see, but she's been promoted a few times. She's a manager now, and it's
Oh,
been
good for her.
nothing but awesome
Yeah.
for her career, right?
That's cool.
And as a
Yeah.
leader, that's some of the best things that you can do. You can see your
It
people
is.
grow. And
It is.
sometimes they need to leave the organization to do that. But even if they
Yeah.
leave your department and grow somewhere else, I think that's great. But that's where, that vision from a payroll aspect, it's really how can we provide, gracious living, which is a core part of Kohler, to everybody in every aspect
Yeah.
of, to your role,
I love
to
that.
receiving your pay and just making it worthwhile. Payroll should be
Yeah.
frictionless. There should be no issues. It's like turning on the
Oh,
faucet,
for
right?
sure.
That water's
Yeah.
going to
Yeah.
run, especially if it's a Kohler faucet.
Yeah.
It's so obvious that you can't just undertake that without the right culture, not only in the organization, but also as a leader, right? And so, wonderful that the stars align there. I also think, as you grow as a leader, as any of us grows as a leader, that changes the aperture. So, am I mistaken? I think you did that exercise mostly with a domestic team, right? And then as you start to look at, the global role and, where the organization's going, I got to believe that gives you, that just changes even the opportunities or the lens of the conversation, because now you're looking at teams that are, all across the globe, or maybe folks that want to work more global, in a global context, or others that
Yeah.
don't want to be in a local.
We've had that conversation in the UK as well. The India team is still newer. We had there's a new hire there, but it's one of those things where everybody gets the same questions, and it's that same touch, because you have to know as a leader with global teams, like what happens, what's if both of my team members in India would resign, what do we do? How do we process
Yeah.
that payroll?
Yeah.
Business continuity.
Yeah, this is also where you talk about, right, from a stretch and organization assignment, like, how can the team in the UK help the team in India, and how can they cross collab on
Yeah.
things and make things better? And then it provides them both opportunities, not only to just, grow, but to learn payroll outside of their region. And it's so different everywhere. But at the end of the day, a lot of it's the same sort of concepts, right? We
Yeah.
need to get the HR data in. We've got, some timesheet things to deal with in some countries. And then you've got a gross to net calculation, and you've got government taxes and compliance on the back end, all while, trying to stay at, upwards of 99.5% accuracy, which is
Is
a
your
high bar, but we'll get there. But we're there.
is your delivery model structured in a shared service sort of way, or are you guys still working towards that?
We're still finalizing that from a global standpoint. Right now, the U.S., we're pretty much shared service just out of Kohler, Wisconsin, but we support all of U.S. And then we have an open role right now in Latin America for
Yeah.
everybody.
It sounds like you guys are
down
collaborating really well. So maybe, I mean, even absent that yet. So maybe that structure would, even bring it together.
Yeah, and we're building that. The LATAM
Yeah.
org change pieces are coming next week, really, and so
Yeah. Very cool.
we'll have that group reporting in, and it's just identifying everybody. I mean, we're 150 years old. We had people all around the world. At one point in time, I think we had an admin running payroll, is what we discovered in one country, and
Oh my.
we've fixed that. That's now been centralized as part of the team, and in the UK does that one. But it's just identifying who's paying everybody where and where all the cats and dogs are. Right?
Yeah.
Payroll's kind of a wild, wild west sometimes if you let it be.
Hey, so I have something I didn't ask you when we were together, and I've been dying to know ever since. So you walked through this exercise, right? This kind of talent and transparency and assessment exercise, and got your lay of the land. But we know that people fall into payroll from all walks of life, right? And so I would be curious to know, like, how can you get at, or has this been something that's already been done by your HR peers or your finance peers or your comp peers, or like, how have you had any success at getting other functional areas to do something similar, and see if you might have some nascent payroll talent out there in these tangential areas that you
Yeah.
can try to get your mitts on, right?
Out on the manufacturing floor, maybe you need to go draft them into payroll.
I haven't, but that's a great idea, right? It's a great
Yeah.
partnership. And it's one of these things where at one of our HR conferences, it's a great story that we can tell to help build that. But I can tell you that it really brings to mind from a payroll aspect. We used to get a lot of our talent from our friends in accounts payable or from our friends on the HR data entry teams, right? And this the other day was, I don't know what I was thinking about. I'm like, those teams, we built the Global Shared Services Organization, and those might not be domestic roles anymore. And so a lot of our path from a career aspect at Payroll and Kohler, you have to rebuild that. And we've been blessed with great tenure. We've got, there's 4 people on the team with less than 5 years, but we've found them all externally, and we've been very lucky that they've liked their job here, and they fit well into the team. And 13 people sometimes is hard to get personalities right too.
That's your future, right? Those
Yeah.
youngins, that's your future.
For sure.
Yeah,
I love it.
I think about that as I think about, all the different answers that Pete and I get to the podcast on how'd you end up in payroll. And I just think
Yep.
there are people that are grabbable talent, out in those other areas. So how could you, cajole your peers into going through some sort of a similar exercise and actually get into their brain a little bit and feed the idea into them that you have some cool stuff that you're doing that they might really like.
I've got a buddy that's a data scientist, and one day you're going to get him in and into a payroll role and helping you out from a data science thing. I think there's
Yeah.
so much talent there. And that's where too, I think part of it is titling it right. You still call it data scientist payroll, or so you still get that title. And this is where payroll's changing. You have to get the title, do the right role, and then recruit it different. Like, this isn't the same as recruiting payroll talent's different than recruiting data science talent. And you have to make sure that you recruit differently and you find them in different
Yeah.
spots. And I think that's
Agreed.
going to be the fun stuff.
Well, I know you saw me do it at Payo in my session, Danny, but I have a Gen Z in my own network. He was an intern for us for a while, and he was passionate about data analytics and just finished a master's in data analytics, has had a job all lined up, and that company's circumstances changed. And all of a
Yeah.
sudden he found himself without a job. And all I can think about since the day he told me that is, how many payroll
Come to
leaders would
payroll.
kill for a chance to take a crack at getting this guy into their organization? And how do we even let them know? How do we even network that and let them know? So I kind of bled it into my session a little bit, and maybe folks will hear from this. Actually, he probably won't have any trouble at all, landing into a place, but he's not thinking he wants to be the consummate payroll guy. And I think
Probably not even thinking it's an option, right? It's
yeah.
in there is even purview. So yeah. But the perfect thing, I mean,
And that's where you have to continue telling the story of payroll, right? Payroll is data
Yeah.
science. Payroll is, advanced technology. And
Risk
it's making
management.
sure those things are known. And we have to do I think as
Yeah.
a group and organization, we have to do a better job of making sure that that's known probably outside of the walls of payroll, and that the rest of the business world understands that, oh, wait, there's something to this payroll aspect and
Yeah.
talent and all those other pieces.
Yeah. It's an investment area. It really is. And that's one of the narratives I'm hoping to try and change with my work, is just saying, like, look, we got to stop looking at this as an opportunity to just cut costs and heads. and look at it more of, how do we invest in it to make it enabler for us? Which it sounds like Kohler is very much doing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's been phenomenal, right? I mean, I'm in a role that's never been here before, and certainly for them to trust me to build this is super exciting. I think
Yeah.
we've done some great things
Congrats.
in a short amount of time, and there's a lot of cool things yet that we have not yet fully unveiled to the rest of the org. But I see us, being able to build a lot of synergy, be able to cut down some of those walls, and really the data aspect that the data we have in payroll is so rich, and it's
It
just
is.
Yeah.
making sure that it's used right within the organization. And
Yeah.
very excited to bring that to fruition here.
Congrats, man. I love it for you. And Kohler.
Yeah.
It's awesome stuff.
I saw you, it was 2022, so it's not new by any stretch of the means, but there was a Workforce Institute at UKG did a study that you guys have probably heard quoted before, where 49%, so like really half of all workers would look for a new job after just 2 payroll mistakes.
I thought the numbers were higher. Yeah.
I'd be curious to know if they did that now, if that would be the case, because there's a lot of trends around people staying in jobs and putting up with things because they're worried about, just security, job security right now.
Well, I did see in just basic turnover that what was, like voluntary quits in 2023 for 43% of workers is in 2024 was down to 38.5. So I think you're right. I think there's, folks are putting up with a little bit more, staying a little bit longer.
Yeah.
But when I thought about that, and I think about all the times that folks who have found their way to payroll say it's the people, the things that keep them there, I just thought, I wonder how many payroll, I won't call them payroll mistakes. I mean, we're subject to a lot of poor data, right? In payroll. How many times would it take before a payroll practitioner is actually discouraged about their role instead of
Oh,
feeling
ask
excited and
Australians.
happy about their contributions in sorry, Danny, what was it you get? What's the Kohler language?
Boy, gracious living.
Yeah,
Gracious
gracious
living.
living, about bringing gracious living to somebody, like that's why people stay. So okay, it might make employees leave, but I get a little worried about what does it make the payroll practitioners want to run for cover too?
And that's something you have to manage with your team as well, right? We just went through, I mean, it's been a 5-year journey, so we're well on our way, but we went through with our GSS org, and that was a huge change from a cultural standpoint at Kohler, right? We did, picking up the data entry from a US based team that had some real great tenure and setting that up in India and Pune has been a journey. And you have to look at it with the right eyes and know the expectations. But from a payroll team aspect, you also have to, as a leader, make sure that if you're frustrated that maybe they don't see it all the time, and you partner with the leadership in that org to smooth anything over and really look at for any chance to make sure that, some little mistake doesn't turn into a lot of frustration. Because you're right, Julie, people can get frustrated, but it's how you manage that. And, tying it back, the frustration for somebody who is, in their upper 60s might look different than frustration by somebody who's in 30, right? And it's how does everybody else in the org do that? How do you manage it from an expectation standpoint? And then, how do you reward and recognize teams as they go through these things? Because it's big transformative efforts. And I think that's
Yep.
important.
You just brought us back to the 5 generations of the workforce that we started out with, Danny. That was masterful. Well, I'm excited. I've been so excited, Danny, since we've talked to share, because I run into so many people, especially in our payroll community, that are worried and thinking about, like, how do we perpetuate this profession, and how do we make sure that
Nurture
there's
it.
coverage and that we're growing the next generation of payroll leaders, and
Yeah.
and you have just this super compelling story. I couldn't wait to get you on and have you talk about it.
The cool thing, Julie, I've met a few this year, very senior level folks that were not previously in payroll that stepped forward and said, I would like to own payroll. I met one leader at the ADP event who did that. He was, I think, the executive VP of accounting, maybe, or something finance. And he stepped forward and said, hey, I want to take on payroll. We need to make this something much more than it is. And he's owning the transformation and all of that. But I thought that was really, really cool.
We need to DNA test that boy. See what chromosome that is.
Yeah, and look, I've said this before. I've at some very big companies in my career, Google, Disney, and some others. I've come across some leaders that had no payroll experience, but took the role as an opportunity to go to a higher executive level and just thrived and did some
Yeah.
amazing things, made some great contributions. And some of them stay, some of them go on to other, bigger things. A lot of folks like to rotate around some bigger companies, but they make thriving careers, they make impacts, and they're folks that you would never have probably thought to even go, hey, would you consider payroll? Did outstanding jobs. So there's talent out there. I just feel like it's like getting payroll to meet the talent. You know what I mean? We got to get them together, because I think there's this sort of like they're looking past each other, maybe, right?
And that's one of the things, right? I didn't grow up in payroll, and I can count on
Yeah,
my
most
hand.
people don't. Yeah,
Yeah, I can count on my hand the number of times I've had to process a payroll. It's not a lot, but I
yeah,
think we move this
scary.
function pretty well, and we got a good group out there, so they cover and make sure that people get paid.
That's
We
right.
got we got 500,000 pay slips annually here in the States, so it's a lot
Wow.
that goes
Yeah.
out the door.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
not small potatoes, but it is
Yeah.
the hot potato.
Danny, can I ask you this? Just with all the kind of stuff, I've been studying the manufacturing space for a bit. I did a lot of consulting in that space in the past. With all the movement, right? We've seen a lot more near shoring of manufacturing. Are you guys in a state where are you from a payroll and HR perspective kind of working with the business right now, and in terms of are they moving some of their manufacturing around and rethinking their supply chains, or are you kind of pretty stable that way, or is your growth is your expansion more growth oriented than just sort of removing the chips, if you will?
Yeah, I think we just built a brand new manufacturing facility in Casa Grande, Arizona, and that's been
Okay.
largely successful. We have, operations in a lot of different plants or a lot of different states in the US. Whereas, one of these, parts of our business is, it's hard to ship big things. If you're looking at a tub and a
Yeah.
toilet, those are big
They're heavy.
from a logistics standpoint, right? And so we do a lot of wherever we manufacture things generally stay in the region as best they can. And certainly I've got no question that, Kohler is going to be around for a number of years. We have a product that's
Yeah.
going to be needed. It's not going away.
You have a very good reputation too, brand reputation.
Oh yeah.
And so I think we've got a, great thing going here, and it's just, to continue with, they're doing the same thing in manufacturing that we're doing in payroll. They're looking at, we earlier touched on Smart Factory. They're working
Yep.
through those things and how those will change, and, upskilling your workforce and making sure that those new roles are attractive as well. Because I can tell you there's probably not as many hand enamelers in 2025 as there were in 1975.
Danny, here's the thing I think manufacturing has got to deal with too. In addition to all the digitization that everyone's trying to go through with AI, trying to figure out their businesses, you guys have a unique situation where if our government is successful in bringing the manufacturing closer to, or at least into America, like you're doing in Arizona, is there going to be talent that actually can do those jobs? Because we haven't historically developed that talent because the manufacturing was elsewhere. I heard a great podcast recently with Mike Rowe, the Dirty Jobs guy, who's a very much a trades promoter, and he explained it very, very pragmatically. And he said, this is going to be a real challenge for manufacturers to now come up with the talent to actually meet the opportunity. And we already have a talent gap. So how are we going to do that? And I'm just curious to see how manufacturers, I think, are going to have to be really investing in skilling their people themselves, versus going out and just finding it,
Yeah, and the other thing, and this is very much a Danny comment, not a Kohler comment, but I think one of the things that you're going to have to see is some more flexibility on manufacturing as well. I think, the baby boomer generation very much accepted the fact that, hey, you're going to do mandatory overtime on Saturdays and you might have to pick up shifts on Sunday. The younger generations now, I think some of them are going to be hard pressed to get them to work 5-day weeks. I don't see any of them working 7-day weeks.
Flex schedules.
It's how do we manage that as a workforce, right?
Yeah. Hopefully what we're going to see is robotics and AI, and mostly, folks managing that at more of an exception-based model, right? Where you're not having to do those things. But again, manufacturing is often 24/7 in some places. But I
Yeah, and
think
it's
it's
hard to
exciting though, all around, because it's going to bring innovation for sure back and more jobs. But hopefully the question is, do the generations now want these types of jobs? Right. And I hope that's where they can become more technically engaging, which it sounds like they will through smarter technologies. And that will attract that generation to want to be a part of it.
Yeah, and it's going to be the same thing that we have to do in payroll, right? The
Yeah.
manufacturing sectors, the payroll sectors, we're all going to have to relearn and how to re-advertise our positions. We draw those people in to
Yeah.
maybe roles that they didn't know existed from a technology
Yeah.
standpoint, and that
Yeah.
isn't, maybe backbreaking work as it used to be.
Yeah, and look, if the reality of the Gen Zs and the Alphas is going to be that they micro retire every 4 months because they need a break, then
Perpetual retirement.
that's something for payroll to have to step up to.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's just a whole different dynamics of the workforce and the worker,
Yeah.
and recruiting, rehiring, payroll. Like, it's on us to get it right if that is in fact the
Payroll's
way
got to
we
stay
go about it.
agile.
Yeah, cool. All right. Well, I don't know, unless there was anything we didn't touch on, Danny, that you were dying to share. I bet Pete's going to ask you how people get in touch with you.
Yeah, I think the easiest way to find me is on LinkedIn. I try to stay active on there. Feel free to reach out, and that's really for anything, whether it's you're
Yeah.
on payroll or HR, and maybe you're struggling through something from a work related thing, or I'm a big proponent of mental health, and so if you need it's an ear to bounce off something, or you need to vent, let's connect and let's work through it. There's so many different
Yeah.
ways that we as a profession can support each other through fun and challenging and maybe frustrating times is that can happen in payroll, right?
No,
And just any way we can help. Really, that's we're a great community, and
it is.
I've benefited from that from fellow peers, and certainly it's something that I always throw out there is that I'm willing to do for them as well.
Yeah. Well, cheers to you and Kohler, man. You guys are killing it. I know you're learning a lot. I know you're doing a lot of cool things. I love every time we talk, man. I learn a little bit more about how you're thinking about it. And yeah, I would say the same thing, man. I think you should certainly reach out to Danny if you have questions. Maybe you're on the same journey. You just want to have a shoulder to cry on. I know it's painful sometimes, but it's on the other side is the opportunity, and you're going to be better for it in every way possible. So keep doing it, man. Keep
It's all
doing
good
it.
stuff.
Yeah.
Thanks, Danny. We appreciate you.
Yes, good having you on, and we will talk to everyone soon.